it's a pleasure to welcome you here as we have this very important conversation about the future and the health of our community. I'm so glad that all of you were able to join us this evening. Just to let you know a few housekeeping notes, the bathroom is down here to your right. So as you go out of the sanctuary, go right, and then it'll be on your left down the hallway. Hopefully everybody got to enjoy some of the good food and snacks beforehand, and we were ready to have a wonderful evening, very productive conversation tonight. So now I'm going to turn it over to our co-chairs, Tony and Carissa.
How's everybody? Great. Man, that's a good looking crowd out there. I'm excited. Y'all are here. So my name's Tony. I am a recovering addict, 7 years clean, sober myself. If you're one of our elected officials, would you please stand up for us? And I see some that are running as well. Thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate it, and I appreciate it. I really do. If you've been impacted by the overdose crisis, could you stand up? I thought a lot more people would stand up. So, all right, thank you. How about if you carry Narcan? Would you stand up for me? I'm already standing. Always strapped. Thank you. Again, thank you guys for coming.
So first, I just want to talk to you about the purpose of tonight. So we're coming together tonight to learn a little bit more about the overdose crisis in our community. We're going to get trained on Narcan, so more of you can stand up next time. And we're going to hear from our public officials what they're doing to combat the crisis. We know that the only way that we can save lives is if we have a shared understanding of what we're doing and what solutions work. So this meeting tonight is a space for us to build that collective understanding together as a community. We live in a pretty divided world. We need to work together across all of our differences. Doesn't matter about political party, social class, race, lived experience. We've all been through the collective pain, and we're all experiencing what we want to come up with real solutions to this crisis. So my name is Carissa. I was born to a 15-year-old mother, and she entered into a relationship with an abusive alcoholic by the time that she was 17, and we grew up with a whole lot of trauma. And I say we because we grew up together. So my mother and my sister have both succumbed to substance use as a way to manage some of the pain from the trauma that we experienced. We lost our mom to hepatitis C in 2017. In 2016, my sister's life was saved by Narcan so she can live another day. But today she's still out there, so she's not yet found what she needs to get that hope. So I live every day with that fear that that phone call is going to come. And I see some of you shaking your head that you've lived through that fear as well. So I chose to become a licensed clinical social worker. So I provide clinical services by day, and by night I'm the chapter chair of the Ohio River Valley of Hoosier Action. So I work to help end this overdose crisis. My hope is that no other family experiences the pain that we have been through.
Again, my name is Tony, recovering addict. Grateful to be here. Grateful that I get to do these things today. I grew up in a good family. I kind of turned to the wayside. Actually, for me to be up here and speaking in front of you is an act of God, because I had a very high social anxiety and would not be able to do this. This is God-given. I'm a product of overdose survival as well, but I overdosed before everybody was carrying Narcan everywhere. So it was the ephedrine and the adrenaline that brought me back. Product of the Department of Corrections system, and Did a lot of time in and out of county jails all over the country. Now I work in recovery. And I've worked my way up the ranks. I started off at the Healing Place as a detox monitor, and now I'm an executive director at a faith-based transitional house in Gordon, Indiana. Soon to be transitioning back to a 30-day treatment center here in Clarksville. So the reason why we're here, Ohio River Valley, the Ohio River Valley chapter of Hoosier Action is local here to Scott, Floyd, Clark counties. Our ORV chapter works at the local, state, and federal levels on a variety of issues. But primarily works to end the overdose crisis that we got going on right now. And save Hoosiers' lives. Thank God some of our lives were saved in here because we're giving back now. And now they're saving lives. And they're saving lives. It's those fingers of the recovery world that go out and produce. We have a wide range of members consisting of individuals in recovery, people in active use, parents, people of faith. Oftentimes we work at the federal, state, and local level across party lines to improve all communities. We met and moved Senator Braun to co-sponsor the MAT Act. I think there's a picture coming up. It was a bipartisan bill that would make it easier for people who need life-saving medicine for substance use disorder and access it from their primary physician. It does save lives. It keeps them alive long enough so that they can seek some sort of active recovery, a 12-step program. Hopefully to save on the Narcan. Hopefully to save them from that. You can see that was a cool trip for an addict like me. That was very special to me, to sit down with a national senator. There's a couple of good-looking guys in that picture. Me too. Yeah, me too. We also met with Representative Trey Hollingsworth, another co-sponsor, and got all 9 of our federal congressional representatives to vote yes. So we're moving and shaking. In early 2020, we worked with legislatures to save and extend the syringe service programs. Everybody familiar? Now, it's not just to get needles out on the street. Okay, that wasn't our focus. It's also to minimize HIV, Hep C, soft tissue damage. There's a lot of different things that come with the intravenous needle use. The law was set to expire and outlaw syringe service programs. And they're vital to public health programs for our community. Like I said, it reduces the spread of communicable diseases like HIV, Hep C, soft tissue infections. I'm a sufferer of that myself. They are also critical programs for people who use drugs to get help and resources to find recovery. We get them in the door, we can point them somewhere else, right? We can give them a flyer, give them my card, give them Tracy's card. Call somebody when you're struggling. We met with Senator Grooms to get his vote on this program as well. So, moving and shaking, trying to get out there in the community.
So all of that has led up to this summer, we started with a community listening session. So we just invited the community in to have a conversation about what they're seeing in the county, things that they would like to have changed. And over, we kept hearing, we need to address this overdose crisis. We held a war on drugs training to help people see kind of the history of the war on drugs and that what we've done historically is not necessarily what we need to do to fix it. We did outreach and knocked on doors and learned more and more after we talked to hundreds of people. So we are going to work with our local electeds currently to help equip the local law enforcement with naloxone, to hopefully equip at least 10 more local organizations or businesses to dispense and carry naloxone through the nalox boxes, and to increase the number of trash cans with syringe disposal in the uptown and midtown neighborhoods to reduce the incidence of improperly disposed syringes. If you have a business or church that wants to distribute naloxone, please let us know at the end during our call to action. And we want you to be able to sign our petition so that there will be different opportunities for that. So tonight's not a one-time event. It's a continuance on a path to save lives. The whole goal is to make our community better. I have children growing up here. Several of you probably have children growing up here. We want to leave them a world that's better than what we walked into. So we're going to work together and partner with our local and state elected officials to make changes in the community based on what we have heard from our neighbors. So Tony is going to run us through our agenda.
So we've had our opening and welcome. Relationship building is our next step. Our overdose crisis overview. We're going to have some story shares. Some Narcan training. I think Tracy's going to do some Narcan training, so everybody can leave here with some Narcan when you leave. And please do. Faith response. We're also going to get some responses from the elected officials. The next steps. What do we do next? Where do we go from here? And then we'll close with, I think Gabe's going to close us with a prayer and a word. So.
So one of the things that you will see is that you, in your packet, received a comment card. Tonight, we're not going to have the flexibility in tonight's program to be able to open up the floor for public comment, but we do want to hear from you. So you can write on that comment card whether you want to address that to Hoosier Action, if you want to address that to local electeds. Those will be gathered up at the end of the time, and we will follow up with you from those comments. Ms. Charlotte?
I'm Pastor Charlotte Downs, the hostess with the mostest that you met. I just want to perk you guys up a little bit here. I am a peer support coach. I'm also alumni from the Women's Healing Place. I'm coming up on 12 years of sobriety. God that I stand here to talk to you guys, and I end this because I love them people. I have compassion for them. I've been that alcoholic, I've been that, I've been that prostitute, I've been homeless, I've been with a hopeless state of mind. And God has restored everything back to me. It's been keeping me from it. I still reach out to those in recovery, those that are walking the streets that I pass. I cry with empathy. I have this, and I'm also part of Hoosier Action, and I love them. I love this. This is a beautiful organization. Also, I'm part of another nonprofit called All Anointed Women Empowering and Transformational Health. It's out of Clark County. We're just starting. It's a preventative services for youth, middle school and high school. That they will implementing the program to inform them, give them information, educate them about substance use disorder, alcoholism, and vaping. So with that being said, this is gonna be the welcoming time of this, okay? I'm gonna perk you guys up. I want you guys to stand up, and I want you to meet and greet somebody you don't know, because your neighbor isn't just your neighbor next to you. Just a minute. Hello. In the process, okay. Now I want to ask you guys the question, okay? We're going to ask you guys this question. What brought you here tonight, and what do you want to learn from what all you've already heard? So I'm getting ready to turn this back over to Teresa.
I'm definitely not Carissa. She's much better looking, better in purple. So the reason we're here, this is a big epidemic. This is a national epidemic. Actually, it's kind of a world thing now. The opiate crisis is reaching Canada, everywhere. It's huge. In 2020, it's estimated that between 80,000 and 100,000 people died from overdose. Preventable overdose. Sorry, guys. U.S. has the most overdoses in the world, and overdose is the leading cause of death in Americans under 50. It is the leading cause of death in Americans under 50. Surpassing heart disease, cancer, car wrecks, the leading cause of death. Preventable. Indiana's also we're on the front lines. We're direct linked to Chicago and different places. We're right there on the front lines of this problem. 2,554 Indiana residents died from overdose in 2021, and a nearly 40% increase since 2019. That's huge. More Hoosiers die from drug overdoses than car crashes. Leading cause of death for 18 through 20-year-olds. So leading cause of death for people under 50 and 18 to 20. We're killing a generation. It's killing a generation. We're gonna talk a little money. Okay? It's cost the state over $43 billion with a B dollars over the last 15 years. That's $11 million a day that we're spending. Our region's not escaped this. It's here in the county. It's here in your hometown. It's in the country. It's wherever you look, there's a problem with this. Last year, 9 people died every month in Clark and Floyd County from preventable overdoses. These people have friends, family. Some of these people would have went and worked in the recovery field had they been saved. I'm just looking around and I see people that it drives me, man, to know that there's people out there that care and that did survive overdoses, and now they can go out and give back, right? Because that's what we're called to do. It's not a job for me, it's a passion. That's why I get up here and talk how I do. Now I'm relaxed and I can, we can do this. 6 people died this weekend right here in New Albany. I just found about two friends of mine this morning, husband and wife that died in Charlestown.
When we feel that pain, we kind of need to know the why, right? And I have news for all of you. We're not here tonight to talk about drugs. We're not. Because we're here to talk about the hardships in our lives that create the right circumstances of trauma and pain that have led someone to seek that out. When you go into the nursery, not that they have nurseries anymore, but you go into the nursery, can you pick out the bad baby? When kindergartners go up and they say, whenever I grow up, do you think anybody says, whenever I grow up, I want to have substance use disorder? No. But when people are in pain, they turn to things that are going to help take that pain away. For some people, that's faith. For some of us, that's food. For some of us, it's the substances that dull or alter our experiences. So once somebody begins the use of substances, changes in their body occur, and it leads to this disease that is lifelong and requires some sort of intervention to overcome. When we look at that trauma, we experience poverty, right? Poverty is a leading cause of a lot of the trauma. Since the 1970s, wages have gone down and the cost of living has risen. So wealth inequality is at an all-time high. Poverty hit those rural communities especially hard. How many of our families are from Eastern Kentucky because it's 1 tank of gas, right? And so when we saw that those factories left town, right, or the coal mines shut down, family farms were consolidated, school districts were consolidated, resources became sparse, and it led to conflict within the communities. There's a whole lot of despair and hopelessness in that. We blamed one another, and we became engaged in this conflict that just further divides us. And then the pharmaceutical companies realized, hey, there's money to be made here, right? And so they came in and they created a substance that was highly addictive and potentially fatal. There's a whole lot of propaganda that you'll hear out there that the cause of the overdose crisis is because of China or because of immigrants, but it's not, it's our pain. And when you look at pharmaceutical companies that took advantage of that situation, and then all of a sudden these warning signals went off, right? And we realized the dangers of these medications. So they decided to create a substance that couldn't be crushed and inhaled. So that became the rise of the intravenous drug use. So when we saw the rise in IV use and the subsequent health conditions like HIV, hepatitis, and infection, we saw more and more of our neighbors dying. And then we started looking at what's going on here, right? Right now we're about to face an opioid settlement fund to kind of help redress this issue. It's kind of an admission of guilt, right? We also looked at that as substance use rose, criminalization was believed to be the answer. So prohibition was implemented, and when substances are made illegal, they can't be distributed or possessed, then they become smaller and more easily concealed. So when you look up here, back in the era of alcohol prohibition, we started with beer and wine. And that became spirits and eventually became moonshine. And moonshine is much more potent than beer or wine. We also see the same thing. Opium was a pretty regular thing that people used around the turn of the century, well, the previous turn of the century, like 1900. And that gave rise to heroin, which eventually gave rise into fentanyl and carfentanil and all of the synthetic opioids that we're seeing today. %90 of formerly incarcerated people in the United States do not get treatment services. And 3/4 of those that are in prison for drug-related violations are jailed for a new crime within 5 years after release. This is called recidivism, or the likelihood that someone is going to reoffend. Incarcerated people are also 129 times more likely than the general population to die within the first 2 weeks of release of incarceration. We have enough evidence that the community love and support of harm reduction helps us save lives. We see that jails that incorporate substance abuse treatment within their jails have lower rates of recidivism and better health outcomes. Scott County, a couple of years ago, arrested 1,500 people within the span of a year. The sheriff just shared with us that through the implementation of different treatment programs within the jails, we're down to 500. So when you look at that, when you look at someone who's been incarcerated, right, we've made this a moral issue and not really about the pain that people experience, and we've criminalized people who use substances. We condemn them to die alone from a preventable death. It's hard to get the support for the treatment programs that we need when people who think that those that use substances are less than us. Harm reduction is viewed as enabling, and substance use is viewed as a choice instead of a disease. We have enough evidence that that love and support will help people recover. How much more evidence do you need, right?
Argue with a changed life.
Right? You'll hear a few more people tonight share their stories and see that those lives can really be changed if we just provide that love and just treat people like they're humans.
So the route we're taking is not working. What happens if we keep heading in this direction? I've already talked some numbers. That cost is only going to increase. What is the cost going to be to our community? It affects us all. It affects all of us in some way, shape, or form. Tax dollars, neighbors, parents, children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. It affects all of us in some way, shape, or form. We lose the spirit, the energy, and the love they bring into this world. I've lost some good people. to this disease. We lose what they can offer the community through work and recovery, through going out and doing outreach, going out and telling their story, going to a 12-step meeting and just sticking their hand out and saying, hey, I know where you're at, brother. People die from overdose, leave behind dependents. Sometimes right there. Sometimes their kids see this. They'll never have a chance to have a mom or dad. Has long-term effects on our mental health. I know it affects mine. It affects mine. We know how, from the pandemic, how essential workers are from retail, teaching, and nurses. We have a large portion of our community either dealing with substance use themselves or have a loved one struggling. And that takes a toll. It really takes a toll on our everyday being, on our work performance, on our just everyday being out there. Many people in this room right now, myself included, are in a constant state of anxiety waiting for that phone call they hope never happens. I get it far too often. So is Tracy. Choice is up to us. Are we going to continue down this path, or are we going to keep incarcerating and not trying to save these lives? Or are we going to come together as a community and work together to end this thing? What's the story we want to tell of our community? That some of us are not worth dignity in life? That we all deserve a safe and healthy community full of opportunity? We want to give back. We want people to give back and search some form of recovery. I found a David Spangler quote. Some people think they are in community, but they are only in proximity. True community requires commitment and openness. It is a willingness to extend yourself, to encounter and know the other. I'm going to tell a little story about this Bible. Some of you know this. A couple of years ago, I went to a funeral of a friend of mine that died of overdose. And I just stuck his funeral announcement in my Bible. I do a little pastoring on the side too. But can y'all see how many's in there now? I just made a habit of putting them in there. I haven't counted them. I don't want to count them.
Come on. Sorry.
And this is just a fraction of the people I know. We need help. We need help to end this. I've said from the beginning, there's this old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It's going to take a community to move, to shape us, to fix this problem. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. So when you think about it takes all of us, right? And we start thinking about what do we need? The bare minimum is that we need all people on the front lines, which is all of us, including our law enforcement officers, to carry naloxone. Just like the 1,200 police departments across the country, Scott, Clark, Washington, and many other counties across the state. The soonest that someone is able to receive this medication to restore breathing, the better their chances are to survive. We need to reduce the shame and stigma across our communities. Because of the criminalization of substance use, people dispose of those used syringes in ways that are not safe. Syringe disposal on trash cans can provide that safe disposal for syringes so that we keep them off the streets, provide infrastructure for those that use syringes to be able to do so responsibly. We need churches and businesses that get trained and carry naloxone. We're going to train everybody here tonight. Anybody, which is all of us, who could potentially have interactions with someone in active opioid use should carry. What else do we want to do locally to save lives and connect people to recovery in lieu of detention? So, right now, on your agenda, you've got a QR code right here. You can scan that, or you can go to menti, menti.com. And Menti is going to pull up a space where you can enter your code. It's 52914455. It's also right up here on the screen. So when you pull up that Menti meter, enter in your thoughts. What do you think we could do?
Please give us ideas.
Yeah.
Please give us ideas so we can form a platform.
Give them ideas, right? We have lots of people in the room that are elected officials or candidates for office. They may need ideas. Education, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of education. Recovery services. Support services and funding from the state, removing ex-saver, reducing shame and stigma.
Community health workers and boots on the ground, man, that is crucial. Community health workers and recovery coaches are the secret sauce of this, man.
Oh, helping people discover meaning and purpose.
I never had a purpose. Now I got a passion.
You guys can keep adding those things in, and we'll consolidate those to provide to different people and to consider into our future planning. Tony and I have kind of been the bearers of bad news tonight, I think. So next you get to hear a story of redemption. Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Steed, and I'm an addict. I'm the street outreach volunteer with Project Recovery with Tracy, and I grew up here in New Albany, and it's my first time speaking, so I'm nervous. You got it. Thank you. I've had many friends experience overdose here in Floyd County. In the last year with Project Recovery, I literally have did more than 10 reverse overdoses, 2 of which were my cousins. And I want to share a little bit about my story with you. I got addicted to opiates after a hip surgery in 2010. I was on pain pills for 7 years, overdosing 3 times, being rushed to the hospital, almost dead. I've been set free from that addiction since 2017. I am also part of an opiate epidemic settlement that they talk about a lot, from where I was addicted and fighting for my life. Thanks to Brent Miller of Washington County Jail, I went to prison for drug use. And I got out in 2020 and met my mentor, Tracy Skaggs, and have been applying what she's been teaching me, which has been a lot. So, with that being said, my story is mainly my brother with naloxone. My brother, Chris Jeffers, is the reason why I'm pro-Narcan. I was strongly against it. My brother lost his battle to a heroin addiction February the 1st of 2021 due to a fentanyl overdose. The coroner literally told us that he had enough fentanyl in his system to kill a small army. The reason why I do street outreach and advocate for Narcan is because Narcan would have saved my brother's life. That was my best friend. You know, the last time I seen him was January the 4th when I was leaving the halfway house. He kept telling me, sis, this is going to be okay, just don't ever look back. Little did I know that I was going to get that phone call about my brother. You know, I used to be like a lot of people and say they're just junkies, they're a waste of money, just throw them out, let them die, and so forth, until I got that call about my Bubba. That was my best friend, like I said. So now I'm making a mission to save as many lives as I can by just distributing and administering Narcan. And that same sheriff who arrested me was strongly against Narcan himself. Since then has educated each and every one of his officers, law enforcement team, on Narcan, and they now carry after the loss of his own niece. Now he advocates alongside of me together, which was really weird. 5 years ago, I'm in handcuffs going to prison, and now he's my friend. Brent Miller is his name, Washington County Jail. Greatest man I've ever met in my life. I just hope and pray that we can all get Narcan into the hands of our police officers and anyone else who doesn't carry, because that could be your child and your sibling and your best friend. Please help me and the community and get this accomplished. Because I tell you what, I wish to God I would have had the Narcan when my brother was going through the things he was going through, because I would have my best friend here. I probably wouldn't be advocating as strongly as I am, but I am boots on the ground. I do a lot with active addiction, so I see them on a daily basis. Most of them are my friends. I used with them. Now I'm sitting there while they're using and praying for them, because that's the only thing that's going to get them through it. So with that being said, I just hope and pray that with my story and me talking so fast, you can actually understand it. But I just hope and pray that you all find it in your hearts to vote pro Narcan, because it saved my family's lives, and it saved my friends. It didn't save mine because I hadn't heard of it yet, but I just want everybody to be trained on it and just love one another, because that's what God wants us to do.
That's my mentee, y'all. So with that, my name is Tracy Skaggs. I am the founder of Project Recovery, Southern Indiana. We are a newly founded nonprofit here in Floyd County, New Albany. We are harm reduction. Our mission is to increase hope. We plan on doing that by providing zero barrier access to harm reduction, peer recovery support, education, and compassion. So before I became pro Narcan, for about 40 years of my life, I too was the face of addiction. And I'm only 50 years old. I was also born to a young teenage mother. She was 16 years old. At the age of 4, I was the one who would pass the joint around in the circle. From there, my mother taught me how to roll a joint. And from there, it went from me hitting the joint at each and every pass that I made. At the age of 13, my mother introduced me to cocaine. Many nights before school, I was snorting cocaine and chasing it down with a shot of whiskey. In school the next morning. I didn't necessarily go to school for the education. I went to school so that I would have a safe place to go. I needed to escape my home life. My mother, again, was an alcoholic. She was a drug addict. I was introduced to all of those things, and even prostitution, though never me. Through many of my childhood days, I stared at the face of death through many of my mother's drunken escapades. As a child, I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I grew up traumatized. I grew up neglected. I grew up without home security. I grew up without food security. I also grew up without a nurturing mother, without bonding, and without truly knowing what love was. With all of my pain and my trauma, I did exactly what I was taught to do. I numbed it with drugs. Throughout my addiction, I have used every drug that there is, from crank to crack to snorting cocaine, acid, ecstasy, marijuana, pills, Xanaxes, you name it, I've tried it. In 2014, I found my favorite, well, actually, 2010, I found my favorite love, which was pain pills. And that's because I could control my high. The other drugs, that was a little too high for me. I couldn't go to sleep. I couldn't sleep anyhow because of the trauma. Eventually, all of my traumatic memories that I had repressed became fully alive again. I was a ticking time bomb, and I was ready to explode on everyone who had hurt me, everyone who had deceived me, and everyone who had failed me. I finally got so tired of myself. I couldn't stand to be inside my skin. I wasn't a danger to myself, but I was a danger to everyone else. So I sought help. I put myself into mental health treatment, and believe me, I fought through with a fierce determination for over 10 years. I faced every hurt, every hang-up, and every habit. However, what they did not know was I was still using drugs. That's how well I was good at masking everything. In 2014, I was cut off from my pain pills. Now, I did have a legitimate medical reason to receive them. I have rheumatoid arthritis, I have 3 bulging discs in my neck, I have arthritis in my neck, and I have a tear in my spinal cord. So I was given pain pills. When those were removed from me, and again in 2014, and that's when all of the restrictions on the pain pills happened, and that's when heroin came in. Now, I've done a lot of drugs before, I've admitted to that, but I always had some sort of self-respect. And that was IV use, I had never done it, and that was heroin. Until 2014. Heroin came knocking on my door. And I tried it for the first time. And I thought, well, what's the big deal? It's like doing 3 pain pills, and I was good for about 8 hours. After about a week, I found out what the big deal was. The pain, the hook that it had on me. I couldn't chase the hunger of the drug. The thing is not only was I the drug addict, but I married a drug addict too. We both bonded together on trauma. We had 2 beautiful children. I actually did have a career. I graduated high school, and I was a medical office worker. They knew I was a high-functioning addict. Nobody said anything because I did my job, and I did my job well. So I was overlooked. In 2015, after about 9 months of the heroin, I was terrified. I had never been so hooked on a drug before in my life. So knowing the drug world and seeing all of the people in the treatment and the methadone, it wasn't working, and I was scared. I knew that nothing I can do as a lowly human would help me. So I began praying. I prayed at every drug deal I made. I prayed at every line that went up my nose. And when I went to bed, I cried out in prayer. On March 10th of 2015, God reached down into the deepest, darkest pit of hell, and he delivered me from heroin addiction. The thing was, I was delivered, my husband was not. He continued battling that addiction, and I tried to help. In 2016, I witnessed his first overdose. I had to get him to the hospital to save his life. And the cruel and unjust treatment that we received from the hospital, I'll never forget. They looked at me and said, "How stupid can you be? You should have called 911. Maybe they should have known the whole context to the story. My husband had already came from Louisville. There was no calling 911. I was 911 at that moment. He received a lot of cruel and unjust treatment. And because of that, God called me to this work. In 2016, God said, "It's your time." So I enrolled myself into college. I started at Ivy Tech, got my associate's degree in human services with a certificate in addiction. I began advocating in that moment. I began being a voice for those who feel like they have no voice. I decided that if we can't do any better, then I'll stay in school and I'll do better for them. I went on to bachelor school. I just graduated from Spalding's Bachelor of Social Work program in June 4th of this year. And as we're talking about the numbers of last year, my husband was one of those numbers. On October 4th, actually October the 8th of 2021, I got that phone call. Knowing I could get that phone call, I could never prepare for that phone call. What we didn't know was that my husband actually died on October the 4th. He went in as a John Doe 47. He laid in the morgue for 4 days. He was alone. As if he was nobody. And he was more than his addiction. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather. He had talent. He was funny. He had an infectious laugh. And he would do anything for any one of you all in this room. And a man who thought he wasn't loved, it was proved how much he was at his funeral. I watched 30 years of our marriage, glimpses of it come in and out of that funeral. And everybody talked about what a wonderful man he was, regardless of his struggles. So I grew up the child of an addict. I became the addict. I married an addict. And I'm also the mother of an addict. For the last 2 years, I've gotten several of them phone calls. Thank God she's still alive. But I know that any day, I'm still able to get that phone call. So if everybody wants to know why I'm so loud about Narcan, because it's personally affected me. I have lost family members. I have lost my husband and my daughter's life, as well as everyone else's sons and daughters are at risk every single day. She is worthy. He was worthy. Everyone out there struggling is worthy of life. We don't get to determine that. That's God's job. And today I'm going to train each and every one of you on Narcan. And just you being a concerned citizen, seeing somebody you don't even know, and you save their life, you could be that one compassionate person who changes the whole trajectory of their life. All it takes is one act of kindness and true compassion to change somebody's life. So, with Narcan, first you need to know the signs and symptoms of an overdose. And each and every one of you, whether you have somebody in active addiction in your home or not, you run the risk of witnessing an overdose. It can be at the gas station, it can be at the grocery store, it can be walking down the street, it can be going to your car. We are all at risk of witnessing an overdose. And that's someone's child. That's someone who's being prevented from receiving that phone call. So the signs of an overdose, clearly, they fall out. Other signs of an overdose is they will start gasping for air. Because what it's doing is the opioids are depressing on their heart, so they're not able to breathe. The other thing you want to look for is blue lips or purple on the fingernails. That means they're not getting oxygen. Another sign of an opiate, and it's not necessarily an overdose, is the pupils. The pupils are pinpoint when you take opiates. So that's another thing you can look into. The thing is that when in doubt, still use Narcan. Narcan is harmless unless you have opioids in the system. The only thing this does is it reverses the opioids from the brain for a short period of time. Narcan, this is one thing I want to stress, it only lasts for about 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, they can go directly right back into that overdose. That's the importance of having 911 there. I'm not going to tell you to force them to go with 911. They may get up and run. Don't chase them down. They're going to be a little upset at you when you do this, because you just put them straight into a withdrawal, and the last thing they remember doing is that line of dope or shot of dope. All you're going to do is you're going to lay them down. I always suggest you tilt your head up. Number one, we want to open some airwaves. I'm going to Narcan myself so that you all can see that this is completely harmless. You're going to take this little thing, remove it from the package. You're going to simply put it up their nose. You see this red plunge? That's it. There's one dose in each one of these vials. You're going to insert it in the nose. You're going to plunge it. Now, I'm right here. I'm okay. If it's not an overdose, if it's something else, you're not going to cause any additional harm by using this. As a matter of fact, it's called Aaron's Law. Aaron's Law is in place to protect all of us from any liability. Aaron's Law was created by the founder of Overdose Lifeline, Justin Phillips, and that's exactly where we get our supply from. The supply of Narcan is grant funded by the state of Indiana with a partnership through Overdose Lifeline. I have open access to this. It's promoted by the state of Indiana. It's promoted by Indiana State Department of Health. Aaron's Law was created so that people were not held liable for this. In 2016, they had an amendment on Aaron's Law to where anyone, if you are a drug user, because if you're a drug user, a lot of times there's fear of calling 911. They're afraid they're going to be arrested. They've got paraphernalia, they have dope on them. In 2016, that amendment protects anyone who has an active use and that has drugs on them and paraphernalia. They are not allowed to be arrested. That is a law. I'm not saying that they don't, but they're not supposed to because of this law. It does not protect from warrants. It does not protect from any guns, knives, anything like that, but it does protect that individual from being arrested for paraphernalia or possession. But again, there's absolutely no liability to this, and you can see I'm still standing here today. I'm right here, I'm fine. Absolutely nothing has happened to me. So with that, that's as easy as it is. Other than that, we do also distribute some safe user supplies that we get from the health department because harm reduction is promoted. We do not distribute needles because it is not Indiana, or New Albany does not do this needle exchange. We do refer them to Clark County where they can go to the needle exchange. What we do provide is condoms, we provide alcohol swabs, we provide bandages, we provide a safe cooker or clean cooker because through the cooker, it can be transmitted, HIV and Hep C. What I've also found out is clean straws are important too for the ones who snort because HIV and Hep C can be transmitted through that also. So we provide those things thanks to the health department. So now that everybody's been trained, anybody want some Narcan? All right, I'm gonna let the next ones go. You all keep your hands up and I'm coming with Narcan.
This one can give them a minute to help pass it out. And then, okay. All right. Good one.
Thank you, everyone of you all. Everyone with your hands up, you are saying a lifesaver. I always give two because the fentanyl.
While they're continuing to pass that Narcan, I'm going to invite all clergy that are here tonight to come join me on the stage for our faith response.
Doses and it's almost gone. Thank you.
So I'll go ahead and start talking while they're still passing that out. My name's Joe Bradley. I'm a member here at this church, Park Christian Church, and I was actually ordained at this church in December of 2014. But sometimes I don't make it here on Sunday because I have another gig. I'm the chaplain at Clark Memorial Hospital, and that's my main job. You could say that's my congregation is Clark Memorial Hospital. So, and I wanted to say just right up front that I have come to believe that all people are spiritual, whether they're religious or not. And so if you're here tonight and you're concerned about this being a religious thing, don't worry. I've kind of learned to relate to people really basically human to human. In my job at the hospital, I'm one of the only people that walk in the room that's not talking about their body or about taking vitals or about their blood. I just want to say, how you doing? How's your spirit today? Are you staying positive? What can I do for you? Sometimes people want me to do religious things like pray, but sometimes I'm just there to sit with them. And I've been working this opioid epidemic on really both ends. I've been working on the recovery end because at Clark Memorial Hospital, we have a behavioral health unit. And so on the third floor, people are there for detoxing. And then we also have our IOP, which is intensive outpatient program. So I lead spirituality groups there. And I was the one that put up there when they were doing the responses, help people find meaning and purpose, because that's my approach. When I first started leading those groups, I took more of the religious approach, and I learned through the years to take more of a spiritual approach, and I started following the work and writing of Dr. Viktor Frankl, who was an Auschwitz survivor, wrote the famous book, Man's Search for Meaning. And he differed from Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler in that he didn't think that our primary purpose as humans is to fulfill our passions or to seek power, but to ask, why am I here? What's my purpose? And he helped his comrades to survive Auschwitz, and then he taught his logotherapy. And so I lead a group in our outpatient program called the Meaning of Life Group. But lately, I've been visiting churches. Oh, I forgot about the back end. The front end is recovery. The back end is the too late end. As a chaplain, I wear the code pager. Sometimes the code pager goes off and it says 2521, that's ER, -4, that's full arrest. And I never know what to expect, but the last few years, there's been a lot of overdoses. And so I'm the one that's there to minister to the family that arrive. So I see the code going on, I see the addict getting CPR, and I know they might not make it. So I'm waiting for mom and dad to show up, or for brothers, sisters. And a lot of times they know, they've been dreading this. And so I've been dealing with this for the last few years, and it just, every time it breaks my heart. Because I'm a dad too. I've got a 29-year-old and a 25-year-old, and these are the prime ages, and I have to really work at transference, counter-transference. It's like, Joe, that's not your kid in there, okay? But it really touches me. And so I wanted to get involved in doing something. So a couple of years ago, my pastor told me about Hoosier Action, and so I joined Hoosier Action. And lately, this last few weeks, I've been visiting churches because I know people of faith want to get involved. So what is our response as faith people? Well, we can pray about things. We can pray for the addicts. We can pray for first responders. But brothers and sisters, don't you get tired of just praying? Don't you wish you could do something more than just pray? And so that's what I wanted to do. You can contact your public leaders, sure, but you can also get involved. And also remember Jesus when he visited his hometown in Nazareth. You remember that what he did was he read from the scroll of Isaiah, and he said these words, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to release the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free. Would you agree with me that those who are in addiction need to be set free? Amen. So that's what we need to do. One last thing I just wanted to say. We just lost somebody this year in our church that a lot of people knew. He's a former mayor, Warren Nash. I just know in my heart, Warren will be very proud of what we're doing tonight. Warren loved every day New Albanians. So God bless you all. I'm going to ask Pastor Gabe.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you to all of you clergy who are standing up here and have the courage to stand for this, and many more who couldn't make it tonight that have signed on to our faith letter as well. And in every conversation I've had with local ministers and people of faith, well, we all believe, of course, in the sanctity of life, and we believe that every human life has dignity. And we all share that common desire to live healthy lives. We want to see healthy communities that we live in. We want to see families and loved ones thriving and growing, regardless of our differences of color of skin or the contents of our wallet. None of those things should be barriers to living a life that's fruitful. And we know that one of the major things that's keeping our community from thriving is this overdose crisis. It's tearing apart our communities, our families. This is the third congregation I've served around the country, and throughout my ministry I've seen this over and over again, the pain that comes from this. And we believe that this is not only a public health emergency, but it's also a moral and a spiritual crisis. It's something that is imperiling the hearts and the souls of our entire community all the time. And as I talk to ministers and clergy people around town, every one of us, our communities have been affected by this in some way. Many of our congregations have suffered losses of members who were near and dear to us and family members. And as I say, I've seen this throughout my ministry. My introduction to my early days of ministry, I was the very first funeral I led was for someone who passed away of an opioid overdose far too young of an age. And throughout these years, I've seen too many families who I've had to offer pastoral care to who were devastated by the loss of folks and the loss of livelihood for those that didn't pass on the life that they could have because of this. And I've felt the effects of that acutely over the years, and I'm sure that everyone standing up here, all my fellow clergy colleagues, have experienced those same things. And we grieve the loss of life, because all life, it doesn't matter who you are, we are all made, I believe, in God's image. And the loss of so much talent and potential and energy and love that any person could offer the world if they had that second chance, if they had that chance to survive. That's why I do what I do, and that's why I got involved with Hoosier Action, was to do this work, to save those lives, to save that potential. And the grief and the despair that these families experience from overdose death, that's a grief that impacts all of us. And all of us, whether we know it or not, I'm sure know someone who's closer than we may think who has been affected by this. And so as people of faith, we are just continuing to call and to plead with our local officials to act, to address this crisis, to save lives. And we believe that our community has meaningful ability to take action right now to prevent more of these deaths. And we firmly believe that the harm prevention methods, Narcan, and the other measures that we are calling for with Hoosier Action can be a really powerful step in kind of turning the tide and leading to a healthier and more flourishing life for all of New Albany and Floyd County and all of the southern Indiana region. And so I just continue to join with my fellow clergy in praying for strength, for courage, for wisdom, for discernment, for all of us, for our leaders, as we call on all of you to join us in these efforts to save lives.
I'm going to invite us into a moment of silence to honor and remember those who have passed away. And in that time of silence, if there's someone who's on your heart, someone that you're remembering, I also invite you to say their names aloud.
Jeff,
David.
Matt. Justin.
Dalton, Troy,
Candace.
Jeff, Seth,
Amanda.
Fred.
Nico, Chris,
Mm. Larry. Mm. Mm. And all unspoken names too. 320 has died. Mm.
With so many names on our hearts, I invite you to turn to God in prayer with me. Dear God of all, we come before you tonight to ask for your comfort and your wisdom, and we seek to be encouraged. God, many of us know someone who has died from an overdose. We've heard stories of just how painful and challenging losing loved ones from addiction is. And so tonight we pray for children who have lost parents and parents who have lost children. We pray for spouses who have lost spouses and for friends who have lost friends. We pray for all families who have lost loved ones. Wrap them in your loving arms, God. Let your peace consume them, and make the memories of those who have died become a source of joy and blessing for all. We pray also for people and families who have not lost loved ones, but who are currently battling the pains of addiction.
Yes, yes.
We know there are so many families in our community who are struggling to get the help they need. God, we pray that you would give them the strength to make it another day. Give them the courage to ask for the help they need. And God, give us the care and compassion to extend the help wherever it is needed. Help us to see that things like Narcan are an opportunity to breathe hope back into people and save the lives that you have created and blessed us with. Loving God, God of life, sometimes we can feel so helpless in the face of such a large problem. Despite these big and overwhelming feelings, help us choose to affirm the goodness and sacredness of the lives we have lost, and help us to choose to honor the sacredness of the lives that are just barely hanging on.
Yes, yes.
God, in all that we do, in all the ways that our community organizes itself, help us choose life. It's in these things that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you to the members of our clergy and faith community for sharing with us. So tonight, you got to be graced with Tony and I's presence, right? It's pretty exciting. Hear a little bit of background information, a little bit of a history lesson. We got to hear some of those stories of success and some stories where we didn't succeed. We got to hear the faith response. We got to hear from the organizers what our thoughts are. But we have another opportunity for us to be able to hear from our public officials the different steps that they have already taken or things that they would like to do. So first I would like to introduce the City Council President, Jason Applegate, and he's going to go with a 5-minute update for us. So, short time.
I'll set my timer here. I can get a long number of times, so. There you go, 1, 2, oh, perfect. Well, I first want to say thank you to Hoosier Action for putting this together. It's extremely important to look around and see faces and see the community come together on an issue that is so important and affects everyone. I want to thank everyone who's spoken tonight. We've got Tony, Clarissa, Gabe, Will, Joe, and then Tracy, and of course our story from Julie. That was very heartfelt, and thank you for sharing. From the city side, we were of course awarded the American Rescue Funds, and when we were awarded that money, we looked around and we have a program that's in place because we are an entitlement community, and that And that program is CBDG money, which is Community Block Development Grants, where we get money directly from the federal government. And it comes directly into our redevelopment department. And that is to directly impact our lowest income, and we set that area every year with that money. And the program that we have in place, it has the mechanism to get that money out. So as we looked at how we were able to put this money into action, we put this money forth with redevelopment and administration, and we offered up a lot of suggestions. We had a committee that looked at what we wanted to do with this money, and we put it. I've got some numbers here, and I'll tell you what so we put just about 3.6 million towards like health and wellness. To a lot of organizations like LifeSpring, and helping them be able to have a facility here in New Albany that is well needed for the treatments. We work with, we gave some money to Hope Southern Indiana, Dare to Care, the New Albany Township Trustee, Homeless Coalition, Pediatrics and Specialist Care, which if you don't know who they are, they're a business that they try some specialty cares that doesn't just go to pills and opioids and those type of things first, especially with kids. They're now located downtown New Albany at the old Shad building, but they're a very good organization. They have nonprofits that also work together within their complex or that building that helps a lot. Along with that, we put into every year we do an emergency repair program to help relieve a lot of stress from people in these areas that can't fix up their house and those type of things that you call and you get that. We also, along with these elements to help there, we gave money to Our Place Drug and Alcohol Services, money to Family Services Administration, the Token Club, which helps countless people in abuse and get through just life and have a place to meet and help with the facility. Along with that, we also gave money to like CASA and Big Brother and that to help out. Those are things that we have done. From the council side, we also have activated our Public Health and Welfare Committee that works directly with is a direct liaison, is what's in our ordinance with the health department. And we've activated that to look at what we're going to do with the opioid money from the settlement that has came to New Albany. So we're gonna put forth a plan to be able to what we would recommend to the council on what we're going to do with that money, and that should come together very soon within, I would say, the next couple council meetings. I think there should be a lot of. I think you would like what we're probably going to recommend from what I'm saying. We also I heard a lot tonight we talked about the kids, and a lot of this started as childhood. I want to look at everybody that we're looking at potentially saving with the opportunity of these 10 businesses and those elements, that we also look at the kids and see how we can help these kids that have also been have had some of these struggles, so we don't have this issue later on in life. I've got just a few seconds to close up. So as we look forward with what New Albany is doing, and we are doing a lot of things, we also can see what we may not be doing. And I want to make sure that as we look forward and we see that we put these up here with 10 businesses, that once we get these 10 businesses, that we check those 10 businesses off and we say, hey, we got 10, let's go get 10 more. But we've got to be able to get these goals, and we've got to be able to see that we're hitting the goals instead of always moving the goalposts, because we can keep moving the goalposts, but let's acknowledge that we are hitting some of these steps. So I do thank you all very much for putting this together tonight, and I'm hoping that a couple of these other issues that we'll be able to address, that we can work with our other bodies in government and get some of these other things marked out as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you to the City Council for everything that you've done and everything that I believe that you will continue to do at your hearts in this community. It's evident with what you just shared with us. I think sometimes you guys don't get to share that as much. So next we're gonna invite our state senators up. We have your Representative Ed Claire. But we also are going to have Representative Rita Fleming. She has an emergency, and so Ed is gonna be able to share some of her updates as well.
Thanks, Carissa. Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be with you this evening. Thanks to Park Christian Church for hosting this, to Hoosier Action for organizing it, to Carissa and Tony for leading the program this evening, and most of all to all of you for taking the time to be here and the interest and the passion that you have for this issue and this crisis. You know, the solution, I think most of us in this room know, will not come from elected officials. Elected officials have to be part of the solution, but the solution will come from the grassroots, from all of you, from Hoosier Action and from others who take the time and the interest to step up and talk with their elected officials and others in the community who are in a position to make a difference. Carissa mentioned that Representative Fleming couldn't be here. She just texted me a little while ago. She was on her way and got called away with a family situation. Everything is fine, but she had to attend to a situation that demanded her immediate attention, and she wanted me to convey her regrets and let you know how much she wanted to be here. I know that many of you here in this room know Representative Fleming and have had the opportunity to meet with her, and I know she looks forward to meeting with any or all of you whenever you'd like. She's very accessible and very willing to meet. We've talked about a lot of things tonight. Harm reduction is a theme that has run through everything, and many of you know that I'm the author of Indiana's syringe service law, which was enacted in 2015. So I've been fighting for that since 2015, and I think Tony and Carissa mentioned earlier how it almost went away, and thankfully we were able to extend the sunset, and Hoosier Action played a big role in that. Hoosier Action was at the State House and helped with the grassroots advocacy that I talked about earlier as being so important. We have to keep fighting for that law. It's unfortunate that we have to keep fighting for it, but I think it's part of a broader need to continue to raise awareness and change the conversation about substance use. In particular, I think Tony used the word dignity earlier, and I think that's a really important word, to bring dignity to people who are suffering from substance use. I've used this example for years, so I apologize to those of you who have heard me say this before, but I think it's a good example. You know, we need to get to a point in terms of public perception and acceptance similar to where we are with diabetes care. You know, when someone shows up at the hospital because they've had something bad happen with their diabetes and they're in the emergency department, we don't slap handcuffs on them and condemn them for their bad choices and bad behavior. Thankfully, we've reached a point where we throw a lot of resources at them. You know, we meet them where they are and try to give them the resources they need to be successful as they continue to try to deal with their diabetes. And if we could do the same thing with substance use, if we could meet people where they are, which includes harm reduction, and just meet them where they are and help them get to whatever their next step is, including treatment resources available when and where they need them. jotted down a few things. I was really struck, Tony, by that Spangler quote that you put up. I jotted down part of it. Some people think they are in community, but they are only in proximity, and I think that's a really important thing to consider. I know it's something that I'm going to take away from here. We need to be in community, not just in proximity, and that includes elected officials and all of us in this room. So again, it's an honor to be with you. I appreciate what you're doing. Look forward to continuing to fight alongside you, and I'll be around later if you have any questions or want to chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jason and Ed, for those words, and we look forward to working with you all on trying to find solutions for this crisis going forward. Hello, everybody. My name's Will. I am an organizer with Hoosier Action. I lead our Ohio River Valley chapter down here. I've been doing this work for a little bit, talking to hundreds of people, and this issue is at the center of all we do because so many people are affected by it, whether you're in the room, other people we talk to in the community. So we're at the close of our meeting. Getta and the team back here is going to be passing out some commitment cards that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But I wanted to take just a second to really, I really believe in you all in this room, and I believe in the work of building community and organizing, because I've seen it work in the past. And throughout the course of history in our country, it's everyday people like you and me that have changed what's going on, that have come together. That's like the real story. We don't hear about it so much in the history books, but it's groups like this meeting on a Thursday night, taking precious time to come together. That's what's gonna change this crisis and save lives. So there's commitment cards coming out to you right now. So I'm inviting you into everyday people and public leadership, right? Like all of us are leaders in this room. We need to roll up our sleeves and get to work to continue this. And so this commitment card is a chance for you to do that. All right, first thing on it, if you look, you should put your contact info down. Do we got enough for the front? Raise your hand if you haven't had a commitment card yet. We're passing them out with pencils. Okay, so I'm just gonna take you through what's on the commitment card. If you don't have it yet, you'll hear it in just a minute. So the first thing you can do to take action tonight is to go back into the community and get some petition signatures and invite your friends and family to join us. So you should have in your packet our campaign one-pager and then a sign-in sheet on the back. Everybody should have one of those. So if you want to go collect petition signatures and bring them back to us at our next meeting, that would be awesome. If you want to invite people in, if you think this issue is important, do that. So that is option number one. I should have a commitment card up here to read them off because I'm... All right. We got a slide. I was like, wow, I'm really gonna think about option number two here. Okay. Option number two is you can attend our next campaign meeting. So that's gonna be, I think, 2 weeks from now on October 27th at 6:30, same time, same place, right? So just 2 weeks from now, right here, we usually meet in the fellowship hall, we usually have some food. We're gonna be talking about what next steps we can take to try to get some of these policies in place, how we can work together. So if you wanna come to that, check the box. And the last thing we're gonna do that you can join is we're going to have, we did a war on drugs training in June, which went really well. We're gonna do another war on drugs training. So if you don't know what the war on drugs is, right, it's this 50-year war and set of policies that we have in America, and it goes back even farther than that. So all the messages we hear about drug use and stuff, they come from somewhere. So we're gonna really get into it, right? And get the tension of what did we learn? And where does this stuff come from? We're also gonna be doing a little bit more about harm reduction. You've heard that word come up a lot. So we're gonna train with some on what that is. And then we're gonna talk about fentanyl and why that's kind of the big boogeyman right now. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that. So that is gonna be, okay, we have a date for that. It's not on the card, but if you wanna write the date down, it is going to be Friday, November 18th at 6 p.m. here in the fellowship hall. We will have good food for that, so it's going to be pretty informal. So if you want to go. All right, fill out your cards. Who's got their card filled out? Raise your hand. All right, raise the card up, raise the card up. Okay, everybody go collect the cards. I'm just going to stall for a little bit while we get these cards. All right. What are you saying, Pastor Mead?
Just Van.
do like being up here. Maybe I should be a minister. All right, everybody, you got your card filled out? Raise your card. When you get it done, we're going to collect it, okay? But seriously, thank you all for being here. Thank you to our elected officials, any candidates who showed up. This has been great. We're going to do a closing. Pastor Gabe is going to come up and close us out for this evening. But if you have any questions, you can reach me at will@hoosieraction.org, and I'll be happy to meet with you. Pastor Gabe.
As we close out, just once again, thank you to each and every person that's here. Your presence here means so much. It's so important. And what you're doing is sacred work, in my belief. And we've heard a lot of heavy stories here tonight. We've heard a lot of tales of sadness, but this is also a moment of hope, because this is a chance to write a new story. We called this the town hall for our future. And so this is a chance to write a new chapter in our future that is healthier and more hopeful. So I hope that all of us will leave on that note of hope and promise that can come when folks like all of us just get together and talk about it and think about how we can move forward to address these crises in our community. So I just pray that each and every one of you would leave here with blessing and peace of God. You would be filled with strength and courage to go out and do what you can for your neighbors. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. Have a good night.